You are standing on a frozen field of mud and blood, just beyond the ruins of a city whose name will be forgotten. It is the 6th of December 27 AD. The air is so cold it feels like a blade against your skin. This place was supposed to be the final gamble, the hinge upon which an empire's fate would turn. This was Nineveh. It was meant to be a victory. Instead, you see the end of a world. The imperial standard, the golden aquila that flew beside the Christian labarum, lies broken in the filth, its eagle's head staring blankly at a grey sky. Around it are the bodies of the finest soldiers the Eastern Roman Empire had left, the veterans of a 20-year war, now just cooling meat for the wolves. They did not break. They were annihilated. You see him then, the man who led them here, the man who crossed Asia Minor like a new Alexander, the Emperor Heraclius. He is not in a golden sarcophagus. He is not being mourned in the halls of the great palace. He is pinned to the earth by 3 Persian lances, his eyes open, his final expression one of utter disbelief. A stray arrow took him from his horse at the height of the battle, and in that moment, the soul of the Roman army fled his body and vanished into the winter wind. Without him, the disciplined shield wall became a terrified mob. The countercharge faltered, then reversed into a rout. This is the point of divergence. Not a grand council, not a secret treaty, but the random, meaningless flight of a single piece of sharpened wood. In the world you knew, Heraclius lived. He shattered the Persian host, marched on their capital, and saved the empire. In this world, he dies, and with him dies the very idea of Rome. The news travels faster than the victorious Sassanian army. It is a poison whispered on the wind, a shadow that falls over Anatolia weeks before the first Persian cavalry crests the horizon. City after city, garrison after garrison, receives the proclamation from Shahanshah Khosrow II. The Roman emperor is dead. Their field army is dust. The war is over. Surrender and live under the glory of the King of Kings, or be erased. There is no debate. There is no heroic last stand. For 20 years this land has been a battleground. The fields are salted with blood, the cities hollowed out by plague and endless sieges. The people are beyond exhaustion. They are spectres haunting the ruins of their own civilization. When the shimmering columns of Sassanian clibanarii, the ironclad cataphracts that seem more like demons than men, appear before the walls of Caesarea, of Ancira, of Nicaea, the gates are not defended. They are thrown open. What is one more master? When God himself has so clearly abandoned you. You watch from a rooftop in Chalcedon, just across the narrow strait of the Bosphorus. You can see the city, Constantinople, the queen of cities, the walls of Theodosius, the last bastion of a 1,000-year-old Imperium. For weeks, refugees have poured in, their faces masks of pale terror, bringing with them the news of the Sassanian advance, an advance that is less a military campaign and more a stately procession. Now, the procession has arrived. The far shore glitters. It is a sea of steel and silk, a forest of spears. You see the campaign tents of Khosrow II, vast pavilions of crimson and gold, and the enormous siege engines being assembled monstrosities of wood and iron that look like beasts from a forgotten age. But the most terrifying sight is not the army. It is the silence from your own side. The great palace is a viper's nest of plotting eunuchs and terrified aristocrats, each trying to secure their own survival. There is no heir. There is no general capable of replacing a man like Heraclius. The Roman state has been decapitated, and the body now convulses in its death throes. The siege is a formality. It is an act of political theatre. Khosrow does not want to reduce the city to rubble. He wants to possess it. He wants to sit on the throne of Constantine. After a week of symbolic bombardment, of catapults hurling not stones but the severed heads of Roman captives over the walls. The offer is made. The gates open. You are in the crowd on the Maze, the great central avenue, as the army of the Sassanian Empire enters Constantinople. The silence is absolute, broken only by the rhythmic tramp of marching feet and the jangle of armor. This is not the triumphant parade of a returning Roman general. This is an occupation. The air, thick with the scent of incense from the swinging censers of the Magi, feels alien. The symbols are all wrong. The winged figure of Ahura Mazda, the Zoroastrian supreme god, hangs from banners where the cross should be. At the head of the procession, riding not a horse but a colossal war elephant draped in purple silk, is Khosrow-II. He is older now, his beard streaked with grey, but his eyes burn with a fanatic's fire. This is the culmination of his life's work, the final victory in the endless war between Persia and Rome, the war that began centuries before Christ was even born. He rides past the Forum of Constantine, past the great porphyry column where the city's founder once stood, and makes for the Hippodrome. There, before the assembled terror of the city's populace, he does not declare the Roman Empire to be at an end. He does something far more insidious, far more brilliant. A proclamation is read, first in Pahlavi, the language of the Persian court, then in a stilted, formal Greek. Khosrow II, Shahanshah, King of Kings, Lord of the Aryans and the non-Aryans, is assuming his rightful inheritance. The Caesars, he claims, were merely placeholders, governing the western half of a universal empire whose true heart had always been Persia. Now, the schism is healed. The long age of division is over. He takes a new title. He does not discard his own, but adds to it. He is Shahanshah-e-Rum, the King of Kings of the Romans. This is the unexpected twist. It is a masterstroke of propaganda. He is not a foreign conqueror destroying a civilization. He is a restorer, a unifier. He co-opts the entire legacy of Rome, framing this brutal conquest as a homecoming. The Roman Empire did not fall. It was reabsorbed into its ancient rightful whole. You are not a conquered people. You are subjects of a corrected history. But as the words echo across the stunned silence of the Hippodrome, you see the reality. You see the Sassanian immortals, the elite guard, forcing Roman nobles to their knees. You see priests of the Orthodox Church being dragged from the crowd, their vestments torn, their faces bloodied. You see groups of young women being separated from their families by soldiers with cold, appraising eyes. This is the ethical tension of the moment. You are offered a new identity, a place in a new world order that stretches from the borders of India to the shores of the Adriatic. The price is everything you ever were. The price is your history, your faith, your dignity. Survival requires you to believe the lie, to accept that the man on the elephant is your rightful emperor, that the fire altars being prepared in the public squares are a sign of purification, not desecration. To resist is to die. To accept is to let your soul die. The city of Constantine is now Khosrow-Shad, the joy of Khosrow. The Golden Gate, through which triumphant Roman emperors once paraded, is sealed with bricks and mortar. A new gate is being carved out of the Theodosian walls to the north, so that the sun will now rise from the direction of Persia, not the west. The very geography of the city is being rewritten to serve its new master. That night, you look out from a hidden attic window. The streets are patrolled by Sassanian cavalry, their lance pennants fluttering in the sea breeze. From the Augustion, the great square before the city's cathedral, you see a new light. It is not the gentle flicker of candlelight from a church vigil. It is a great, leaping, hungry flame. It is the first of the sacred fires, the Atash Adaran, being kindled in the heart of Christendom. A new God has come to the city of God, and he has come with fire and sword. The conquest of the body is complete. The conquest of the soul is about to begin. The sound is what you notice first. Not the clang of swords or the cries of the conquered, but a rhythmic chipping, a high-pitched scrape of metal on glass and stone that echoes from the direction of the Augustion. It is the sound of a memory being erased. For a month, the great church, the Hagia Sophia, the wisdom of God, has been sealed by order of the Shahanshah. Now, you see Sassanian engineers and their press-ganged local artisans swarming over its marble facade. Their purpose made chillingly clear. You stand in a side alley, watching. They are not destroying it. Destruction would be an act of passion, a barbarian's rage. This is something colder, more calculated. You watch as the great bronze doors, depicting scenes from the Gospels, are not melted down, but carefully unhinged and carted away, destined for a treasury in Ctesiphon. You see master craftsmen, men you once shared wine with in the city's taverns, being forced at spear point to ascend scaffolds. Their task is not to tear down the breathtaking mosaics that line the interior, but to cover them. With meticulous care, they apply a layer of plaster over the face of the Christ Pantocrator in the dome, his hand raised in blessing. They obscure the Virgin and Child in the apse. It is not an act of iconoclasm. It is an act of editing. The message is clear. These images are not being destroyed as false. They are being hidden as inferior, as an incomplete draft of a greater truth. You manage to slip inside, disguised as a water carrier, your heart a cold stone in your chest. The cavernous space, which once soared with the sound of orthodox chant, now rings with the clipped orders of Persian foremen. The very air is different. The familiar scent of frankincense and beeswax has been scoured away, replaced by the sharp, medicinal smell of lime plaster and the alien perfume of burning sandalwood. The great silver altar is gone. The iconostasis, the screen of holy images that separated the sanctuary from the nave, has been dismantled. In the very centre of the church, directly under the dome where the presence of God was said to dwell, a new structure is rising. It is a square platform of polished granite, waist-high, with 4 pillars at its corners. At its centre is a vast, shallow bowl of bronze, easily 10 feet across. This is the Atashtan, the fire holder. This is the new Holy of Holies, an elderly Mobad, a Zoroastrian high priest with a flowing white beard and robes the colour of cream, supervises the work. His name is Qadir, and he is the Mobad, and Mobad, the priest of priests, second only to the Shahanshah in spiritual authority. He sees the mixture of terror and confusion on the faces of the Greek workers. He gathers them, and through a translator, he explains the new reality. His voice is not cruel, it is paternal. The voice of a teacher correcting a well-meaning but deeply mistaken student. "You have built a magnificent house," he says, his gaze sweeping upwards to the dome, which seems to float unsupported, a man-made heaven. "You built it for a shadow, a lesser emanation of the truth. You worshipped the son of a carpenter from a desert province, a spirit of the flesh. We have come to fill this house with the source of all things. We have come to bring you the fire that forged the stars." This is the unexpected twist. They are not merely imposing their religion, they are co-opting the Christian narrative. In the weeks that follow, imperial decrees, posted in Greek and Pahlavi, elaborate on this new theology. Yes, the prophet Jesus of Nazareth was a wise man, but he was one of many. His message was a localized echo of the universal truth revealed millennia earlier to the great prophet Zoroaster. The Father, he spoke of, was a dim provincial understanding of the one true God, Ahura Mazda, Lord of wisdom and light. His adversary, the Satan, was a crude caricature of the eternal principle of darkness and deceit, Ahriman. Christianity is not outlawed. It is demoted. It is classified, alongside the Jewish faith and the various Gnostic cults of Syria and Egypt, as an Acton, a deviant religion. It is tolerated, but only as a fossil, a relic of a past age of ignorance. To be a Christian is to mark yourself as backward, as someone who clings to a partial truth when the complete revelation is now manifest. The ethical tension becomes a daily torment for the city's inhabitants. Do you bow your head to the fire to save the heads of your children? Do you pay the jizya, the poll tax levied on all non-Zoroastrians? A tax designed not just to fill imperial coffers but to serve as a constant, humiliating reminder of your second-class status. The Patriarch of Constantinople, Sergius, who once counseled Heraclius, is now under house arrest, forced to watch his flock be slowly, inexorably seduced or coerced into a new faith. There is no glorious martyrdom here, no lions in the arena. There is only the slow, grinding pressure of bureaucracy, social disadvantage, and the seductive logic of power. The day of the temple's consecration arrives. The city, now officially Khosrow-Shad, is commanded to attend. Khosrow, too, enters not as a conqueror, but as a high priest himself. He is dressed in white, the color of ritual purity. He leads a procession of magi carrying the sacred fire, the Atash Berum, the fire of victory. This is not just any fire. It is a flame painstakingly consecrated from 16 different sources, including the fire from a lightning strike, the fire from a potter's kiln, and the fire from a cremation pyre. It has been ritually purified for months. It is the very essence of Ahura Mazda's power on earth. You watch as the flame is carried to the bronze vessel in the center of the former cathedral. As the Mobads begin their low, guttural chant, the fire is touched to the sacred sandalwood in the bowl. A column of flame erupts towards the heavens, a roaring, hungry pillar of orange light that illuminates the newly plastered walls. And then you see the most brilliant, most devilish act of appropriation. The Mobad Qadir points up to the 4 great seraphim, the 6-winged angels depicted in the pendentives that hold up the dome. They were too difficult to plaster over, and so they remained. "Behold," the Mobad proclaims, "even the builders of this temple knew of the Amisha Spentas, the divine guardians of Ahura Mazda, who surround his throne of light." He re-identifies them. The seraphim of the Old Testament are now Zoroastrian archangels. The golden mosaics of the dome, designed to reflect the divine light of Christian wisdom, now shimmer and dance with the reflected light of a pagan fire. The building's very soul has been hollowed out and re-inhabited. You look up at this space. Once the heart of your world, it is still beautiful. It is still awe-inspiring, but it is a beauty that mocks you, an awe that terrifies you. The wisdom of God is now home to a captive flame, and its light casts writhing, alien shadows where serene saints once looked down upon you with love. The greatest church in Christendom is now the Atash Beram of Khosrow-Shad, the victory fire in the city of Khosrow's joy. And your joy has turned to ash. You are a decade older than you were at Nineveh. The scars on your arms have faded from angry red to pale silver, and the memories of the slaughter have settled into a dull ache behind your eyes. Your name is Hormizd, and you are a Marsban, a Margrave of the Sassanian Empire. After the great victory, after the fall of the city of Constantine, you were rewarded not with a plush sinecure in the new western capital, but with a command on the southern frontier. Here, where the lush green of the Sawad bleeds into the endless beige of the Arabian desert, you guard the empire's flank. For 10 years, it has been the most boring post in the world. The war with Rome is over because Rome is gone. The steppes to the north are quiet. India is a trading partner, not a threat. Your days are a predictable cycle of dust, heat, and disciplining your garrison of Armenian cavalrymen who drink far too much date wine. Your job is to manage the trade caravans coming up from the south and to occasionally chase off Bedouin raiders who get too bold. It is a simple, brutish calculus of tribute and retribution. Then, the reports begin to change. They are small things at first, whispers from traders in the market at Hira, a new preacher in the Hejaz, a prophet who claims to speak for the one true God. You've heard it all before. The deserts are a furnace for charismatic madmen and messianic cults. They flare up and they burn out. You file the reports and forget about them. But they don't burn out. The whispers become a murmur, then a roar. The raiders you encounter are different now. They don't fight for plunder. They fight for death. They charge your disciplined lines of spearmen with a terrifying, ecstatic abandon, their cries of Allahu Akbar, a strange and guttural sound on the wind. They are poorly armed but brilliantly led. When you capture them, they do not beg for their lives. They speak of their prophet, Muhammad, and of a paradise waiting for them. They speak of a holy mission to spread their faith to the world. To you, a man of order and hierarchy, this is not religion, this is insanity. It is a political disease, a spiritual plague born of sun-dazzled ignorance. Your dispatches to Ctesiphon grow more urgent. The local Lakhmid Arab vassals, long the empire's buffer, are overwhelmed. Some have even converted to this new faith. The frontier is unravelling. The court of Khosrow-II, fat and complacent on Roman gold, is slow to react. A desert prophet? A rabble of camel herders? They send a small expeditionary force. It is ambushed and annihilated in a sandstorm. They send another. It is lured into a waterless waste and destroyed. The news reaches the Shahanshah. This is no longer a nuisance. It is an affront to his divine authority. And so, he unleashes the hammer. He sends the army. Not a provincial garrison, but the imperial host, the Spa. The same force that broke Heraclius. It is led by the legendary Shahbaraz, the royal boar, the man who conquered Egypt and stood at the gates of Constantinople. You and your frontier garrison are folded into his command. And as you watch the main body arrive, you feel a surge of absolute confidence. This is the most powerful military machine on the planet. 10,000 Clibanarii, horse and rider, encased in lamella steel, their lances held high. 20,000 Armenian heavy cavalry. Squadrons of war elephants, their tusks capped with sharpened steel, their hides painted with terrifying demonic faces. And behind them, a sea of infantry, archers, and the Roman siege engineers who now serve a new master. The Arab army, under a general they call the Sword of God, meets you near a dusty riverbed called Qadisiyah. In another world, this would be the site of a Sassanian catastrophe, the place where a decadent, exhausted empire fell to a storm of faith. This is not that world. The battle begins at dawn. The Arab forces are a terrifying spectacle of pure zeal. Their light cavalry moves like a flock of birds, harassing your flanks, their infantry charging forward in waves. They are fearless, they are brilliant, and they are utterly doomed. Their charges break against the Sassanian shield wall like water against a cliff. Their arrows glance harmlessly off the layered steel of the cataphracts. When their commander calls for a full assault on the centre, Shahbaraz gives a single chilling command. He unleashes the elephants. You watch from the right flank as the mountains of flesh and fury plough into the Arab lines. Men scream, bones crunch. The disciplined Arab formations dissolve into a panic-stricken mob. Then comes the charge of the Clibanarii. It is not a charge, it is an avalanche of iron. The sound is of a world being torn apart. The battle, which the Arab commanders expected to last for days, is over in 3 hours. It is not a defeat, it is an extermination. The sword of God is broken. His army is a carpet of corpses being picked over by vultures. This is the unexpected twist. The victory is so absolute, so crushing, that it changes Sassanian policy. This threat was not overestimated. It was almost fatally underestimated. Khosrow and his council of Mobads realized that this was not a conventional war. It was a spiritual one. And you cannot kill a god with swords alone. So the hammer is followed by the scalpel. Sassanian forces do not stop at the frontier. They march south, into the Arabian Peninsula itself. It is a brutal campaign of pacification. Mecca, the holy city of this new faith, is sacked. Its strange black stone is hauled back to Ctesiphon as a curiosity for the Shahanshah's palace. Medina is burned. But extermination is not the final goal. Control is. The Sassanians find the other tribes of Arabia, the Christian Ghassanids, the Jewish tribes of the Oases, the pagans who resent the upstart power of the Quraysh, and they make them allies. They provide them with weapons, with gold, with military advisors. They create a new buffer zone, a Mars Banate of Arabia, and turn the peninsula into a cauldron of carefully managed conflict. Islam is not wiped out entirely. It is confined, turned inward, forced to compete in a crowded marketplace of desert faiths. It becomes a localized, messianic movement, one voice screaming among many in the wilderness, forever contained south of the wall of Khosrow, the new line of fortifications and client states that seals the empire from the zealots of the sand. You are part of this new order. You spend years in the Hejaz, propping up a Christian Arab chieftain here, putting down a Muslim rebellion there. You see the ethical tension in your work every day. You are an agent of stability. You have prevented a fire from consuming the world, but the methods are monstrous. You have razed towns, salted fields, and extinguished a people's hope with methodical, bureaucratic cruelty. You have taken a faith that burned with the conviction of universal truth and reduced it to a tribal squabble. One evening, you stand on the battlements of a new fortress overlooking the ruins of Medina. An old Mobad, a religious advisor attached to your legion, stands beside you. He gestures to the silent desert. "We have done a great service to Ahura Mazda," he says. "We have slain a demon in its crib." You look out at the vast emptiness. You have secured the border. You have guaranteed the peace. But you cannot shake the feeling that you have not just killed a demon. You have created a silence where a world might have been born. The war is over. The sands are quiet. And in that quiet, you feel the profound and terrible weight of a history that will now never be written. You are in a city that is a ghost of itself. This is Rome. Not the Rome of marble and legions, but a sprawling, depopulated ruin, haunted by the whispers of its own magnificent past. You walk past the skeletal remains of the Forum, where cattle now graze among shattered columns. The Colosseum is a silent, crumbling bowl, a stone carcass picked clean by time. The aqueducts are broken, and the once great population huddles in malarial squalor near the Tiber, drawing its water from a muddy, polluted river. Your name is Leo, and you are a notary in the Lateran Palace, the administrative heart of what remains of the Western Church. You serve the Bishop of Rome, the Pope. Here, in this city of ghosts, he is the last echo of authority. He is the only reason the name Rome still holds any meaning beyond a tombstone. For years, the news from the East has been a stream of poison. First, the death of the Emperor Heraclius, a catastrophe that felt like the sun falling from the sky. Then, the fall of the city, of Constantinople, the new Rome. The reports were confused, contradictory. It was only last year when a refugee ship of terrified Greek monks arrived at Ostia. Their faces gaunt, their eyes hollow with a horror you could not yet comprehend, that the full, blasphemous truth became clear. The Shahanshah had not merely conquered the city, he had claimed it. He called himself the Roman Emperor, and the Hagia Sophia, the heart of the Orthodox world, was now a temple for a fire-worshipping pagan. You sit in a cold scriptorium, the candlelight flickering on a letter you are drafting. It is addressed to the Exarch of Ravenna, the last official representative of imperial authority in Italy. Or he was. The letter will never be sent. Word arrived this morning. The Lombards, the savage Germanic tribe that controls most of northern Italy, have finally overrun the Exarchate. Ravenna has fallen. The last link to the old order is severed. You are utterly, terrifyingly alone. The Pope, a grim, austere man named Honorius, summons you to his private study. The weight of this new world presses down on the room. He gestures to a map of Italy, a crude thing drawn on vellum. The northern two-thirds are shaded in red for the Lombards. Pockets of the south remain independent, but for how long? And Rome itself is a tiny, isolated island in a sea of enemies. The Persian sits on the throne of Constantine. Honorius says, his voice a low rasp. He does not use the Shahanshah's name. He is simply the Persian, an abstract evil. He is the beast of the apocalypse. The fire in the great church is the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel. There is no emperor in the east. There is only a heretic and a usurper. His words are not a lament. They are a legal argument. He is laying the foundation for a decision so audacious, so radical, it feels like a sin to even contemplate it. The temporal sword of the empire is broken, he continues, his dark eyes fixing on you. But the spiritual sword of St. Peter remains, and it must find a new hand to wield it. A Christian hand. He is talking about the Franks. Across the Alps, the Merovingian kings of Francia are a brutal, violent, and fractured dynasty. They are Christians, yes, but of a raw, unrefined sort. Their faith still tangled with pagan superstitions. They are seen here, in the ancient heart of civilization, as little more than useful barbarians. But they are powerful, and they are the only power left. This is the unexpected twist. The papacy, to survive, must perform a great act of historical invention. It must declare itself the sole inheritor of Roman legitimacy. If the imperial throne in Constantinople is spiritually vacant due to heresy, then the authority to bestow that title reverts to the only other source of divine legitimacy on earth, the successor to St. Peter. The Pope is no longer a subject of the emperor. He is the custodian of the very idea of the empire. The ethical tension is palpable in the room. To save the church, you must make a pact with men whose concept of piety is measured in the amount of plunder they donate to a monastery. You must turn your back on 1,000 years of Roman tradition, on the subtle theology and refined culture of the Greek East, and embrace the crude, violent strength of the North. You must render unto the barbarians not just what is Caesar's, but the right to be Caesar itself. Is this the salvation of Christendom or its corruption? Is it a brilliant act of statecraft, or the ultimate surrender to the darkness that has consumed the world? You are sent north as part of a papal delegation. You cross the Alps in winter, a journey of indescribable hardship that claims the lives of 2 of your companions. You arrive not at a glittering court, but at a sprawling wooden hunting lodge near Metz. The air thick with the smell of roasting meat, unwashed bodies, and wet dogs. You stand before the mayor of the palace, the Frankish warlord who holds the real power behind the throne. His name is Grimoald. He is a giant of a man, with a braided beard full of gold rings and eyes the colour of a winter sky. He listens to your carefully rehearsed speech in classical Latin, his expression a mixture of boredom and suspicion. You speak of apostolic succession, of the heresy of the fire worshippers, of the Pope's spiritual authority to anoint a new protector of the faith. Grimoald is not impressed by theology. He speaks through a translator in a guttural, direct tongue. "The Lombards are my cousins. Why should I fight them for you?" he asks. The head of your delegation, a cardinal, makes the offer. The Holy Father will name you patrician of the Romans. He will sanctify your rule. He will declare your wars against the enemies of the faith to be holy wars, with the remission of all sins for those who fight them. Grimoald's eyes narrow. He is a practical man. And the lands you liberate in Italy, the cardinal says, the words tasting like acid in your mouth. The Exarchate of Ravenna, the Duchy of Rome, they will be granted to the See of St. Peter in perpetuity. A holy patrimony, a deal. Not of faith, but of land and titles. The Frank gets a divine mandate for his conquests. The Pope gets a kingdom. Grimoald grins, a flash of white teeth in his beard. He understands this language. He agrees. As you travel back to Rome, you feel no triumph. You have secured the city's survival. You have forged a new sword for the church. But you see the future this pact has created. A new empire will be born in the West. A Holy Roman Empire, forged in Frankish steel and legitimized by papal decree. It will define itself not in continuity with the old Rome of Constantinople, but in opposition to it. A new fault line has been drawn through the world. East is east, west is west, and they are now irreconcilable enemies. One is the Greco-Persian world of the Shahanshah, a realm of ancient syncretic order. The other is a new, aggressive Latin Christendom, a fusion of Roman law and Germanic might. You return to a city that feels different. The loneliness is gone, replaced by a sense of grim purpose. The Pope is no longer just a bishop. He is a kingmaker, a sovereign. The cross is no longer just a symbol of suffering and redemption. It is a battle standard. You have saved Rome, but you fear you have lost something of its soul in the bargain. You have traded one master for another, and this new one demands not just obedience, but war. You are a man whose home is the road. Your name is Raksh, and you are a Sogdian from the dusty jewel of a city called Samarkand. For generations, your people have been the lifeblood of the great trade routes, the masters of the long journey, the middlemen who connected the worlds of China and Rome. You speak a dozen languages. You can read the stars as well as any map. And you know the precise value of a bolt of silk in Antioch versus the price it will fetch in Alexandria. Your life has been a constant negotiation, a dance between empires, playing the Romans off the Persians, finding the unguarded pass, bribing the right border guard. That world is gone. You stand now in the Forum of Theodosius, in the city of Khosrow-Shad. They have not torn down the great triple archway, but they have altered it. Where the Roman emperor once rode in triumph in carved marble reliefs, there is now a new inlay of polished diorite, depicting Khosrow II on his war elephant, receiving the submission of the city's patriarch. The message, like everything in this new empire, is brutally clear. The past is not erased, it is corrected, but it is not the arch that holds your attention. It is the river of wealth that flows around it. This is not a market. It is the treasury of the world, spilled open onto the streets. You see caravans of Bactrian camels, their double humps, laden with spices from the Malabar coast and indigo from the Gangetic plain. You see burly, red-bearded men from the far north, the Varazayagan Guard, as they are called, haggling for amber and furs with Egyptian merchants, offering linen so fine it is almost translucent. You see wagons creaking under the weight of silver from the mines of Anatolia, and gold from the streams of Nubia, and silk, rivers of it. Silk from the Tang Emperor's workshops, silk dyed the imperial Sassanian purple, silk woven with griffins and Simurghs in the looms of Syria. In the old days, this was the end of the road. Now, it is merely the centre. You followed the route yourself. A journey of 1,000 leagues that is no longer a perilous international venture, but a simple domestic transit. From the borders of China, you travelled through lands policed by Sassanian garrisons. You paid your taxes at Samarkand, at Merv, at Nishapur, at Ctesiphon, at Antioch, and finally here. You crossed no hostile borders. You negotiated with no rival powers. You travelled along a single, unbroken spine of imperial control. This is the great consequence of the victory. The Sassanian Empire has not just conquered Byzantium, it has swallowed the entire Silk Road. From the Pamir Mountains to the Adriatic Sea, every pass, every port, every oasis, every major city is under the control of the Shahanshah. The empire has become a funnel, and all the wealth of the known world now pours through it, with the twin capitals of Ctesiphon and Khosrow-Shad as the dual reservoirs at its end. This absolute monopoly has created a prosperity so vast, so ostentatious, it borders on the insane. But here is the unexpected twist. This wealth has not fueled an age of frantic expansion or innovation. It has done the opposite. It has turned the empire inward, creating a gilded, glorious stagnation. With no external peer or rival, the immense energies of the state are now directed toward internal competition. The great noble houses of Persia, the Parthian Shurans and Karans, no longer vie for glory on the battlefield. Instead, they wage wars of architecture. One lord in Ctesiphon builds a palace with a private garden where the fountains run with cooled wine. In response, his rival in Khosrow-Shad commissions a dining hall with a silver ceiling that mechanically rotates to mimic the constellations, a wonder stolen from the fever dream of a forgotten Roman emperor. The Shahanshah, to outdo them all, begins construction of a new wing of the great palace with floors of polished glass, beneath which flows a channel of seawater filled with exotic, colourful fish. The best minds of the empire, the engineers who once built siege engines to shatter the walls of cities, are now employed designing ever more elaborate water clocks and musical automatons for the amusement of a bored aristocracy. You, as a merchant, are both a beneficiary and a victim of this system. This is your ethical tension. You are wealthier than your father could have ever dreamed. The stability is absolute. The roads are safe. But you have no freedom. The Sassanian state is your only supplier and your only customer. At each major depot, imperial agents, the Dikwans, set the prices for your goods. They are not negotiated. They are dictated. You are given a ledger, a daftar, and at each stop, an official stamps it and calculates the state's share. There is no haggling. There is no free market. There is only the vast, intricate, and inescapable machinery of the imperial economy. You see the human cost of this gilded cage everywhere. You pass the slave markets, larger and more crowded than ever before. The empire's internal peace requires a constant influx of human property to build its monuments and serve its elites. You see blonde-haired Franks, pale Slavs captured in raids north of the Danube, and dark-skinned Nubians from beyond the Egyptian frontier. They are the fuel for this glorious engine, their lives rendered down into the mortar of the new palaces. You sit in a wine shop near the harbour, looking out over the Golden Horn. The setting sun glints off the golden roofs of 100 new villas climbing the hills. You have made a fortune on this trip, enough to live like a king back in Samarkand, but you feel a disquiet you cannot name. In the old days, the road was a living thing, a web of possibilities. Now it is a single, rigid artery, pumping wealth from the extremities to a bloated, glittering heart. The Sassanian Empire has perfected the world. It has created a system of total economic and political control, a monolith of stability and order. But it is the perfection of a crystal, beautiful and intricate but incapable of growth. It is a world without chaos, and therefore a world without discovery. As you sip your wine, you listen to the conversations around you. They are not about new lands to explore or new ideas to debate. They are about the price of pepper, the latest court scandal, and the marvelous new mechanical bird the Shahanshah has installed in his throne room. The spine of the world is strong and secure, but you realize with a sudden chill that it is a cage of bone. You've traveled a long way to be here, not in a chariot of war or a merchant's caravan, but as a pilgrim of the mind. You are a young man from Athens, one of the last generation to sit at the feet of the philosophers in the shadow of the Acropolis, learning the elegant, crystalline logic of Plato and Aristotle. But your academy is no more. It did not fall to a Christian emperor's decree as it might have in another history. It simply withered in the chaos that followed the Persian conquest. Its patrons dead or impoverished, its purpose lost in a world that no longer had time for questions about the nature of the good. So you came here, to Gondishapur, in the heartland of Persia. The name itself is a promise, the better walled city of Shapur. It is not a city of marble and sea air like Athens. It is a sprawling metropolis of baked brick, rising from a dusty plain, smelling of strange spices, medicinal herbs, and the ink of 1,000 scribes. This is the intellectual heart of the New World, the brain of the Sassanian Empire. You enter the grounds of the great Bimaristan, the hospital that is also the world's greatest university. You see things that defy your understanding. In one courtyard, a group of Nestorian Christian scholars from Syria argues fiercely in Aramaic, with a Mobad priest over a newly translated text of Galen. In another, Jewish physicians from Mesopotamia, masters of the Talmudic legal tradition, meticulously document the properties of plants brought from the farthest reaches of India. And everywhere, there are the Greeks refugees like yourself, philosophers and mathematicians from Alexandria, Antioch, and your own beloved Athens, their scrolls of Euclid and Ptolemy treated not as relics of a conquered people, but as priceless treasures. This is the Gondishapur synthesis. Khosrow II, in his ambition to be a new Cyrus, a king of all civilized peoples, decreed that all the knowledge of his new empire be brought here, not to be archived, but to be merged. He has funded it with the inexhaustible wealth of the Roman treasury. It is a state-sponsored project to create a single universal system of thought, one that marries the dialectical logic of the Greeks to the cosmic dualism of Zoroastrianism. You attend your first lecture. It is held in a large, airy hall, cooled by wind catchers that channel the desert breeze. The master is a man named Borzuya, a legendary figure, the Shahanshah's personal physician and the head of the academy. He is not a Greek philosopher, nor is he a Zoroastrian Mobad in the traditional sense. He is something new. He does not begin with a prayer to Ahura Mazda or a quote from Plato. He begins with a problem. A satrap in Anatolia suffers from a wasting sickness, he states, his voice calm and precise. His local physicians say it is a punishment from the gods for a past sin. The Greek doctors with him claim it is an imbalance of the four humours. The Indian mystics in his retinue say it is bad karma from a previous life. They are all poets. We are engineers of the body. He unrolls a detailed anatomical chart, drawn on fine Egyptian papyrus, more accurate than any you have ever seen. The world, he explains, is a battlefield between two principles. Ahura Mazda, the force of order, health, light, and truth, and Ahriman, the force of chaos, sickness, darkness, and the lie. The human body is one such battlefield. Sickness is not a punishment or an imbalance. It is a physical beachhead of Ahriman within the ordered system of the flesh. Our sacred duty as physicians is not to placate gods or balance humours. It is to drive the forces of chaos out. It is an act of war. This is the unexpected twist. The fusion of Greek rationalism and Persian cosmology has not led to a flowering of abstract theology or metaphysical speculation. It has led to its exact opposite, a radical, almost militant materialism. The big questions that obsessed your teachers in Athens: what is justice? What is the nature of the soul? What is the ideal state? Are dismissed here as Mainog, matters of the unknowable spirit world. They are interesting, but ultimately useless. The focus here is entirely on Geotig, the tangible, physical world. How does it work? How can it be controlled? The curriculum reflects this. The study of logic is paramount, but Aristotle's organon is not used to debate the nature of the Trinity. It is a tool, a scalpel for dissecting the observable world. Astronomy is the highest of the sciences, but not for contemplating the majesty of the heavens. It is for refining the Zoroastrian calendar, for creating precise horoscopes to guide the actions of the Shahanshah, and for celestial navigation to guide the empire's trade ships across the Indian Ocean. And above all, there is medicine and its dark twin, alchemy. Herein lies the ethical tension. The pursuit of knowledge here is breathtakingly brilliant, but it is stripped of all moral context beyond its utility to the empire and its elite. The goal is not wisdom, it is power. The ultimate project, whispered about in the corridors, is the creation of a panacea, an elixir of longevity, not for the benefit of mankind, but to preserve the divine health of the Shahanshah and the 7 great families of Persia. You are given access to the great library, the book house of wisdom. You see Nestorian monks translating the Greek corpus into Pahlavi, not out of love for the classics, but because they are paid handsomely for each completed text. You see captured Roman military engineers forced to write treatises on ballistics and hydraulics, their knowledge repurposed to design the pleasure gardens of Ctesiphon. One day, you are invited to witness an advanced anatomical demonstration. Borzuya himself is presiding. The subject is a condemned criminal, a Slavic bandit captured in the Balkans. He is strapped to a table, alive. He is given a draught of a powerful opiate, a product of their alchemical research, which renders him insensible to pain but keeps his heart beating. And then, with terrifying precision, Borzuya and his assistants begin a vivisection, demonstrating the functions of the living organs to a rapt audience of students. You feel a wave of nausea, a profound sense of revulsion. This is forbidden by the Hippocratic Oath, a sacrilege to the Greek mind. But here, it is justified by the new logic. The bandit was an agent of chaos. His body, by harbouring a criminal soul, was already a vessel for Ahriman. To use his flesh to gain knowledge that can strengthen the forces of order is not a crime. It is a righteous act. The knowledge gained is undeniable. You learn more about the human heart in that 1 hour than in a lifetime of reading ancient texts. But the price of that knowledge is a human soul, and it is a price the Gondishapur synthesis pays without hesitation. That night, you look up at the stars from the observatory's roof. They have new instruments here, brass astrolabes of incredible size and armillary spheres that track the planets with a precision Ptolemy could only dream of. The sky is a map of perfect mathematical order, but you feel a profound emptiness. In Athens, you looked at the stars and saw the realm of the forms, the beautiful mystery of the divine. Here you are taught to see only a celestial clock, a machine whose gears can be understood, predicted, and exploited. The Gondishapur synthesis has given you knowledge, but it has taken the cosmos from you. You are a man of the forest. Your world is delineated by the great river you call the Dunav, the shadow of the Balkan mountains, and the sacred groves where the old gods dwell. Your name is Radovan, and you are the Nyaz of your tribe, a chieftain whose authority is measured in the strength of your arm and the wisdom of your counsel. You smell of wood smoke, cured leather, and the damp earth of your homeland. For a generation, you have watched the new power to the south. The Romans who once manned the forts along the river are long gone, their stone walls crumbling back into the soil. In their place came the Persians. At first, they were a distant terror, the subject of campfire stories brought by fleeing refugees, tales of iron men on iron horses, and a god made of fire. Then they arrived at your doorstep. They did not come with the mindless fury of the Avars who plague you from the north, burning and killing for the sheer joy of it. They came with surveyors and engineers. They rebuilt the old Roman roads. They re-garrisoned the forts. They established a new provincial capital at the ruins of Singidunum, and they called their new frontier the Mars Banate of the Danubian lands. Today, you are in that capital, in the praetorium of the Marsban himself. The room is a strange and unsettling fusion of worlds. The structure is Roman solid stone, high ceilings, mosaic floors, but it is draped in Persian silks. The air is thick with a cloying, sweet incense that scratches at the back of your throat. The man you are meeting, Ardashir, is a paradox. He wears the fine layered robes of a Sassanian aristocrat, but his face is weathered and his hands are calloused like a soldier's. He speaks to you not in the harsh commands of a conqueror, but with the patient, condescending tone of a teacher. He has learned your tongue, a fact that you find more unnerving than any threat. You worship the spirits of the sky and the earth, Ardashir says, gesturing to a surprisingly accurate map of your tribal lands. You speak of a white god who brings the sun, and a black god who brings the winter darkness. You nod, wary. Your Volkli, the white-bearded shaman who speaks with the gods, warned you against this meeting. He said the Persians would try to trap your soul with their foreign words. Ardashir smiles. It is not a warm smile. Your people are not wrong, Radovan. They are simply incomplete. Your Belobog, the white god, is a child's name for Ahura Mazda, the lord of wisdom and light. Your Chernobog, the black god, is a shadow of Ahriman, the great deceiver. You have been worshipping the echo of the truth. We have come to show you the source of the sound. This is the offer. It is not slavery. It is not extermination. It is absorption. This is the unexpected twist of the new Sassanian frontier policy. They have learned from centuries of fighting Romans and nomads that a border held by swords alone is a border that will always bleed. A border held by faith is eternal. Their mission is not to conquer your body, but to colonize your soul. He offers you a treaty. Your tribe will become federates of the empire. Your warriors will be armed with Sassanian steel and trained by Sassanian officers to guard the river against the Avars. Your people will be given grain from the imperial granaries in times of famine. In exchange, you will pay a modest tax. You will provide levies for the Shahanshah's armies, and you will allow the Mobads, the Zoroastrian priests, to establish a fire temple in your main settlement. It is not a replacement for your sacred grove, Ardashir explains smoothly. Think of it as a fulfillment. The fire is the purest symbol of the white god you already honor. By tending it, you will strengthen his hand against the darkness in the world. You are caught in the grip of a terrible ethical dilemma. To accept is to betray your ancestors. It is to welcome a foreign god and a foreign king into the heart of your world. The Volkvi would call it blasphemy, the death of your people's spirit. But what is the alternative? You think of the last Avar raid, the burned huts, the stolen children, the crude iron swords of your warriors shattering against their superior lamellar armor. To refuse this offer is to choose freedom, yes, but it is the freedom to starve in the winter and to be slaughtered in the summer. It is the freedom of the grave. You accept. You return to your village a changed man. You wear a silk sash given to you by the Marsban, and your best warriors carry new swords, their hilts shaped like the wings of a Sassanian Simurgh. You feel the eyes of your own people on you, a mixture of awe and suspicion. When the Mobads arrive, 3 pale, thin men in white robes, and begin the construction of their stone fire temple on a hill overlooking the village, a deep disquiet settles over your lands. But the grain arrives as promised. The Avar raids are crushed by your newly equipped warriors, fighting alongside a detachment of Armenian cavalry. Life becomes safer, more predictable. The syncretism begins, subtle at first, then overt. The Mobads do not forbid the worship of Perun, the god of thunder. They simply say that Perun is a lesser emanation of Ahura Mazda, a local servant of the great cosmic order. They join your people in celebrating the summer solstice, but they bring their sacred fire to the bonfire, chanting their own hymns in their own tongue. The real change comes with the children. They are drawn to the fire temple, to its eternal flame, its intricate rituals, its confident priests who have an answer for everything. They learn the stories of Zoroaster alongside the old tales of the forest spirits. Your own son begins to lace his speech with Pahlavi words for concepts your language lacks. Ashar for cosmic order, Dru for the lie, Quarena for divinely granted glory. You live to be an old man. You see your tribe prosper. You have peace. You have security. But you have paid a terrible price. One evening, you sit by the fire with your grandson. He is a strong, intelligent boy destined to lead after your son. You ask him to tell you the story of the founding of your tribe, the great epic of your ancestors' journey to this land. He begins the tale, but his telling is thin. The names are right, but the spirit is gone. The story is just a story now, not a sacred history. He stumbles over the details, and when you correct him, he shrugs. The Mobad says these are just the tales of the age of darkness, before the light of the Shahanshah came to our lands. And then you realize the profound, irreversible nature of your bargain. Your people's history, their laws, their sacred songs, they have only ever existed on the breath of your people, passed from one generation to the next, in an unbroken oral chain. There is no book of Perun. There is no scripture of the forest gods. In another world, 2 missionaries from the west, 2 brothers named Cyril and Methodius, would have journeyed to these lands. They would have listened to your language, and in an act of creative genius, they would have forged an alphabet to capture its unique sounds. They would have given your people the gift of writing their own story, of translating their soul onto the page. That will never happen now. There are no Byzantine missionaries. There is only the Sassanian Empire, and the empire has a language and a script for all things that matter. Law, religion, commerce. It is Pahlavi. Your native tongue, the language of your ancestors, has been relegated to the home and the hearth. It is a peasant's speech. It will never be written down. You look at your grandson, who can recite the Zoroastrian creed in perfect Pahlavi, but who has forgotten the 3rd verse of the song of his own ancestors. Your people have not been destroyed, they have been unwritten. You are standing in a city that feels like a clenched fist. This is Toledo, perched on its granite hill, whipped by the winds of the Castilian plateau. There is no soft sea air here, no decadent perfume of spice and silk. The city smells of cold stone, iron, and the sharp, clean scent of incense from its dozen fortified churches. This is the capital of the Visigothic kingdom of Hispania, a place that has always felt like the last stop on the road of civilization. Now, it has begun to believe it is the only stop left. Your name is Flavius, a name that speaks of your ancestry, the old Hispano-Roman aristocracy that has endured centuries of upheaval. You serve in the court of King Rexiswinth, a man with the eyes of a hawk and a will of forged steel. Your family once took pride in its connections to the great world, its correspondence with scholars in Constantinople, its quiet condescension toward your Gothic masters. That pride is now a dangerous liability. To speak Greek, to admire the art of the East, is to confess a sympathy for the beast, the Persian Antichrist who sits on the throne of the Caesars. You are in the Aula Regia, the royal council hall. It is a stark, severe room, its timbered roof held up by repurposed Roman columns. The only colour comes from the deep purple robes of the bishops who sit beside the king. Their faces grim, their beards like black waterfalls on their chests. At the centre of the room, on a heavy oak table, lies the kingdom's future. A massive, leather-bound codex. This is the Liber Judiciorum, the Book of Judgments, the new law code that Rexiswinth will promulgate today. In another world, this would be a significant but dry legal reform, an attempt to fuse Gothic and Roman law. Here, it is a declaration of war, not a war of swords, but a war of identity. The Archbishop of Toledo, a man of ferocious intellect and terrifying piety, rises to speak. For 1,000 years, he intones, his voice echoing in the stone hall. The light of true faith and right law flowed from two cities, Rome and New Rome. Now the light of New Rome has been extinguished, smothered by the smoke of a demonic fire. The heretical Greeks have bent the knee to a pagan from Persia. They have forsaken Christ for Zoroaster. Their laws are tainted. Their faith is a lie. He turns and gestures to the codex. The sacred duty, the burden of history, now falls to us. Here, in Hispania, the last untainted corner of the Roman world, we are not merely the kingdom of the Goths. We are the Gothic Imperium, the fortress of the true faith and the custodians of true Roman law. You feel a chill crawl up your spine. This is not political rhetoric. This is the birth of a new world. They are severing themselves from history, or rather, hijacking it. They are claiming that the line of Roman legitimacy no longer runs through the fallen, corrupted East. It runs through here, through the veins of Gothic kings who have embraced the Nicene Creed, the one true faith that the Greeks have now betrayed. This is the unexpected twist. The catastrophe in the East has not weakened this peripheral kingdom. It has galvanized it. The Visigothic monarchy, long crippled by feuding nobles and a resentful Roman populace, has found a cause that transcends all division, a sacred mission to be the last Romans, the last true Christians, on earth. The king speaks. He announces that this law code will apply to all subjects, Goth and Roman alike. There is no more legal distinction. You are all Hispani now, subjects of a single king, under a single law, united in a single faith. It is a moment of profound, enforced unity. But as you listen to the articles of the new code being read aloud, you discover the terrible price of this unity. This new identity is defined not just by what it is, but by what it is against. It is against the Arian heretic. It is against the rural pagan. Above all, it is against the Jew. This is the ethical tension, laid bare in the unsparing language of the law. You see Eugenius, the aged bishop, lean toward the king and whisper, pointing to a specific passage. The Jewish communities of Hispania, with their ancient ties of trade and scholarship to the academies of Mesopotamia, are no longer just a religious minority. They are a suspect class. Their ancestral homeland is now the black heart of the enemy empire. They are, by their very blood and faith, a potential fifth column, a conduit for the Persian madness. The new laws are read out. Jews are forbidden from holding public office. They cannot own Christian slaves. The testimony of a Jew against a Christian is inadmissible in court. Mixed marriages are dissolved, the children to be raised as Christians. The public practice of their faith is forbidden. Their books, their Talmud, that direct link to the scholars of Babylon, now living under the shadow of the Shahanshah, are to be surrendered and burned. You feel a profound sickness in your stomach. You think of Samuel, the Jewish silk merchant from whom your family has bought fabrics for 3 generations. A man of quiet dignity and deep learning. A man who could debate philosophy with you in flawless Latin. You imagine his library, his priceless scrolls, being thrown onto a pyre in a public square. This is how the new Gothic Imperium is being built. Its foundations are not just stone and faith, but the pulverized bones and broken heritage of an entire people. Their wealth will fill the king's treasury, funding his new, centralized army. Their exclusion will define the boundaries of what it means to be a true citizen of this fortress kingdom. Later, you walk through the city. Change is everywhere. Masons are adding higher, thicker walls to the churches. Scribes in the royal workshops are creating new illuminated manuscripts, and the style is a deliberate rejection of the elegant, naturalistic art of the Greco-Roman world. The figures are stiff, elongated, fiercely spiritual. Christ is not a gentle shepherd. He is a warrior, king, his hand holding a cross that looks more like a sword. It is an art of certainty, of militant faith, devoid of all doubt or subtlety. You enter your own family's villa. On the wall of the atrium is an old mosaic, a beautiful piece from 2 centuries ago depicting Orpheus charming the animals. It is a piece of classical art, a relic of a more spacious, more confident world. Your father is there, his face troubled. He tells you the bishop's steward visited that morning. He suggested that such a pagan image was no longer appropriate for a family of your standing. He offered to send the church's own artisans to replace it with a more fitting scene, the Archangel Michael slaying the dragon. You look at the serene face of Orpheus, at the graceful lines of the deer and the lion resting at his feet. You know that to keep it is an act of defiance, an act that could be interpreted as a lingering sympathy for the old, fallen world. To destroy it is to surrender, to accept the harsh, narrow, and powerful new identity being forced upon you. You are a Roman, but Rome is gone. You are a Christian, but your idea of Christianity is now heresy. You are a citizen of a new empire being born in blood and fire, an empire that draws its strength from its own magnificent, terrifying isolation. The world you know is made of 3 things: wood, iron, and the cold, grey sea. Your name is Rurik, and you are a king, though your kingdom is not a land but a ship, a draka with a serpent's head that cuts through the waves like a hungry predator. Your throne is a sea chest full of hacksilver, and your subjects are 50 men with beards like frozen waterfalls and arms as thick as oak branches. You are a Russ, a wolf of the great rivers. For 2 seasons, you and your fleet have followed the old paths south. Your fathers raided the lands of the Franks and the Angles, but the stories the traders tell now are of thin pickings and bitter, endless wars. The real wealth, the river of silver, they whisper, now flows only one way, south, down the great spine of the rivers that lead to the Black Sea, to the city the old skalds called Miklagard, the great city. The journey is an epic written in sweat and blood. You haul your ships on log rollers over the portages, your muscles screaming in protest. You fight your way through the Dnieper rapids, losing 1 ship and a dozen good men to the churning water and the savage Pechenegs who haunt the rocky shores with their bows. You are fueled by a hunger for something more than the meagre plunder of the north, a hunger for a prize worthy of a saga. You finally spill out into the open sea, the vast, dark expanse. The Greeks called the Euxine. You taste salt on the wind instead of pine. And then you see it. On the far shore, the first signs of empire. Not a crumbling Roman fort manned by dispirited levies, but a watchtower of new, sharp-edged stone, flying a banner you have never seen, a strange, winged creature against a field of crimson. A Sassanian banner. Your first raid is a disaster. You beach your ships in a sheltered cove, intending to sack a coastal town. You are met not by panicked villagers, but by a disciplined line of infantry, their shields interlocked, their spears, a forest of steel. Behind them are cavalry, not the small, shaggy ponies of the steppes, but massive war horses clad in iron scales, their riders like metal demons. These are the Slavic federates of the new Marsbanate, armed and trained by their Persian masters. Your wild charge breaks against their shield wall. You are forced back to your ships, leaving your dead behind, a humiliation that burns hotter than any wound. You are a practical man. You understand power. You cannot break this thing. So, you will try to bargain with it. You sail east, toward the straits, a small fleet of a dozen ships, a delegation, not an invasion. You are met by a Sassanian war galley, its bronze ram gleaming, its deck crowded with archers. They do not attack. They escort you, and so you enter Khosrow-Shad. The city hits you like a physical blow. It is not a city. It is a world. You have seen towns, even the great trading post of Burqa. But this is a mountain range of marble and gold, a forest of towers and domes that scrape the sky. The air is so thick with smells, saffron, roasting meat, dung, salt, and 1,000 perfumes you cannot name that it feels like you are drowning. You, Rurik, who have stared down a storm king in the Baltic without flinching, find yourself gripping the hilt of your axe just to steady your nerves. You and your chief warriors are brought before the Sparbed, the Lord General of the West. He is a man whose face is a mask of aristocratic boredom, his silk robes worth more than your entire ship. He has heard reports of your kind. The Northmen, the wolves of the river. You fight well, he says through a translator, his tone making it sound like an accusation. But you fight for nothing, for scraps of silver and a brief, bloody fame. You stand tall. We fight for our freedom, for our names to live in the songs of our children. The Persian allows a thin smile. A name is a whisper on the wind. Gold is real. The Shahanshah has a use for men like you, men who are strong, who fear nothing, and who have no entanglements, no foreign Christ, no local gods with a claim on your soul. Your gods of thunder and blood are simple. They understand a bargain. This is the unexpected twist. He is not asking you to convert. He is not asking you to submit. He is hiring you. He sees your paganism not as a primitive flaw, but as a strategic asset. You have no loyalty to the Christian god of the subjugated Greeks or the Frankish barbarians. You have no connection to the Zoroastrian faith that binds his own people. You are a blank slate of violence, and the Shahanshah wants to write his name upon it, in gold. The offer is this. You and your men will enter the Shahanshah's personal service. You will be his household guard, his shock troops, the iron in his fist. You will be housed in the city, paid a salary in gold that makes your sea chest look like a beggar's purse. Your weapons will be forged by the finest smiths in the empire. You will answer to no one but the King of Kings himself. You will become the Varazayagan guard. The ethical tension of your life is now laid before you. Your freedom, that fierce, wild independence that you defined yourself by, is the very thing you are being asked to sell. In exchange, you are offered a life of unimaginable wealth and martial glory. Is it better to be a free wolf, starving in the brutal northern winter, or the most powerful, most feared hound in the master's kennel? To be a king of a ship, or a captain in the palace of a god? You accept. All of your men accept. The lure of the gold is too strong. A year passes. You stand guard in the Hall of 100 Pillars in the Great Palace. You are almost unrecognizable. You still have your beard, your long hair braided with gold wire. You still carry your great two-handed axe, its edge now inlaid with intricate Persian designs. But over your mail shirt, you wear a tunic of deep purple silk, the color of the imperial house. You have learned 100 words of Pahlavi, the words for command, for threat, for loyalty. You are a creature of two worlds. When you are with your men in your barracks, you are still Rurik the Rus, drinking, wrestling, telling the old stories. But when you are on duty, you are something else. You are an instrument of the Shahanshah's will. You have stood impassively as scheming nobles were dragged past you to the executioner's block. You have escorted the Mobad, and Mobad to the great fire temple. You have become part of the palace's terrifying, silent machinery. One evening, the Shahanshah holds a feast. The hall is a dream of gold plates, fountains of wine, and dancers whose movements seem to defy bone and sinew. You stand at your post behind the throne, motionless, your face a mask of stone. The Shahanshah, an old man now, leans over and speaks to you, his voice a dry whisper. He points with a jeweled finger at a corpulent courtier across the hall. "That man's laughter displeases me," he says simply. "See to it that I never hear it again." You give a slight, almost imperceptible nod. You feel nothing. No anger, no pity. It is a task, a part of your contract. Later, as you walk the silent corridors of the palace, your axe heavy in your hand, you catch your reflection in a wall of polished black marble. You see the purple silk, the gold, the grim set of your jaw. You have what you came for. Your name is now a legend, whispered in fear from the Danube to the Nile. You are rich beyond the dreams of any northern king. But as you stare at the man in the mirror, the wolf in the gilded cage, a cold question surfaces from the depths of your soul, a question you quickly and brutally suppress. Who is the master? And what have you become? You are a man of the book and the fire. Your name is Vahram, and you were born in Istark, the ancient heartland of Persia, the city of the Magi. Your grandfather was a Mobad who stood beside Khosrow II when the sacred flame was first kindled in the Hagia Sophia. You were raised on the pure, undiluted truth of the Avesta, the holy words of Zoroaster. Your world is a stark and magnificent duality, Ahura Mazda, the principle of light, order, and life, locked in an eternal struggle with Ahriman, the principle of darkness, chaos, and the lie. Your duty, as a junior Mobad, is simple: to tend the fires, to perform the rituals of purity, and to defend the truth from all corruption. It is this duty that has brought you here, to the city of Ephesus on the Aegean coast. It is nearly a century after the great victory. The conquest is no longer a living memory. It is the bedrock of history. And yet, here in the West, you feel the bedrock shifting beneath your feet. You have been sent from Ctesiphon by the Mobad, and Mobad himself to investigate a spiritual sickness, a heresy. They call themselves the Mazdayazna-i-Rum, the Roman Zoroastrians, and their influence is spreading through Anatolia and Syria like a fever. You stand before their central fire temple in Ephesus. It is a blasphemy to your orthodox eyes. It is not a stark, functional Sassanian temple. It is built upon the foundations of an old, massive Christian church, dedicated to a female saint. The architecture is a deliberate, unsettling fusion. Roman columns support a Persian-style domed roof. As you enter, you see the central Atoshdan, the fire holder, is burning brightly as it should, but the walls around it are covered in shimmering mosaics, an art form of the conquered Greeks. They do not depict the Shahanshah or scenes from the Avesta. They show the 7 Amisha Spentas, the archangelic emanations of Ahura Mazda, but they are rendered in the Hellenistic style. Vohumana, good mind, has the face of a serene Platonic philosopher. Ashavahishta, truth, is depicted as a blindfolded woman holding scales, a stolen image of the Greek Justitia. A priest addresses a mixed congregation of local Greeks and the descendants of Persian colonists. He speaks not in the sacred Pahlavi of the court and clergy, but in fluent, philosophical Greek. And what he says chills you to the bone. He is not preaching the clear, hard truths you learned in Istark. He is weaving them into something new, something dangerously seductive. He speaks of Ahura Mazda not as the cosmic warrior god, but as the One, the unmoved mover, the source of all being the language of Aristotle. He describes Ahriman not as a co-eternal opposite, but as a steresis, a privation of the good, an absence of light, the logic of Neoplatonism. This is the intellectual poison you were warned about. The knowledge of the Greeks, which was supposed to be a captured tool for the empire's use at Gondishapur, has escaped the laboratory. It has infected the temple. Then comes the true heresy. The priest begins to speak of the Saoshyant, the world saviour who, according to prophecy, will come at the end of time to raise the dead and inaugurate the final victory of light over darkness. In your Orthodox tradition, this is a distant cosmic event, but this priest speaks of it with a terrifying immediacy. He describes the Last Judgment not as a universal renewal, but as a personal reckoning for every soul. He promises a physical resurrection of the faithful, an eternal life of bliss in the Garadman, the house of song for the righteous, and a pit of torment for the followers of the lie. He has stolen the engine of Christianity. He has taken its most powerful and appealing concepts, a personal saviour, an imminent apocalypse, an individual afterlife of reward or punishment, and bolted them onto the chassis of Zoroastrianism. He has created a hybrid faith that offers the intellectual sophistication of the Greeks, the emotional comfort of the Christians, and the imperial legitimacy of the Shahanshah's own religion. This is the unexpected twist. The schism is not a rebellion against the state religion. It is a hostile takeover of it. It is a heresy that claims to be a more perfect, more complete version of the truth. It does not seek to overthrow the empire. It seeks to capture its soul. It is a spiritual Trojan horse, built from the timbers of conquered philosophies and wheeled into the heart of the imperial faith. The leader of this movement is a man named Mazdak the Younger, a charismatic and brilliant Mobad of Greek descent, a man who claims that Ahura Mazda speaks to him in visions. He claims the Mobads of Persia have grown complacent, that their rituals are empty husks. He preaches that the Shahanshah himself, while divinely appointed, has become a prisoner of his decadent court, and that only a spiritual revolution from the West can purify the empire and prepare it for the Saoshyant's arrival. You are now trapped in your own ethical tension. Your orders are to observe, to document the heresy, and to provide the Mobad, and Mobad, with the evidence needed to declare this sect a work of Ahriman, and to crush it with the full force of the state. It is your sworn duty. But as you sit in this strange, beautiful temple, listening to this powerful, elegant Greek, you feel a pull of something other than revulsion. The faith of your fathers is a religion of cosmic order and ritual duty. It is strong, clear, and cold. It speaks of the fate of the world. This new teaching, this Roman truth, speaks of the fate of your soul. It offers you a personal connection to the divine that the endless cycles of purification and prayer in your home temple never did. Is it possible that the light of Ahura Mazda shines brighter when reflected through a Greek lens? Is it a lie, or is it a deeper truth? To follow your orders is to preserve the unity and stability of the empire. To heed the doubts in your own heart is to betray everything you have ever known. You spend weeks in Ephesus. You read their texts, translations of parts of the Avesta into Greek, interwoven with commentaries that quote Plato and the Christian Gospels, reinterpreting Jesus as a minor prophet who foreshadowed the coming of the true Saoshyant. You argue with their priests, and you find their logic maddeningly difficult to refute with the simple certainties you were taught. One night, you are taken to a secret gathering outside the city, in the ruins of the ancient temple of Artemis. Under a full moon, Mazdak the Younger himself is speaking to a crowd of thousands. He is not like the calm philosopher priests in the city. He is a firebrand, an ecstatic. He speaks of the Shahanshah's Varaziagan guard as foreign mercenaries, of the Persian nobility as corrupt parasites. He claims the Kavarina, the divine glory of kingship, has departed from the Sassanian line and will soon settle upon the true prophet of the Saoshyant himself. This is no longer a heresy. This is treason. This is the spark that will ignite a civil war. This movement offers the empire's vast, semi-assimilated Western population a way to be both loyal subjects and culturally superior, a way to reclaim their Greco-Roman heritage, not as a conquered relic, but as the key to a perfected imperial faith. You return to your small room, the scent of the roaring bonfire still clinging to your clothes. You unroll a fresh piece of papyrus. Your report to Ctesiphon. You know that the words you write will bring the legions. They will bring the elephants. They will bring the executioners. The peace of the empire, a peace that has lasted for 3 generations, will be shattered. You dip your reed pen in the ink. You must describe the lie. But as you begin to write, the elegant, terrifying logic of the Roman truth echoes in your mind. And for the first time in your life, you are no longer certain which is which. You are a man who builds cages. Not small ones of iron bars, but vast, continent-spanning cages of stone, bureaucracy, and tradition. Your name is Peroz, and you are the Vuzurg Framadar, the Grand Vizier of the Sassanian Empire, serving the Shahanshah Yazdegerd IV. Your life is a tapestry of endless detail. The tax receipts from Egypt, the reports on grain shipments from the Danube, the petitions from merchants in Ctesiphon. You are the chief architect of the Pax Persiana, a peace that has now held, with the exception of the brief Western heresy, for almost 2 centuries. You stand on the highest balcony of your offices in the imperial capital of Ctesiphon, looking out at the arch of Tak Khazra. The great vaulted hall, the largest single-span arch of unreinforced brickwork in the world, is no longer just a monument to a past victory. It is a symbol of your entire world. Immense, ancient, magnificent, and utterly unchanging. The techniques used to build it have been perfectly preserved. They have not been improved upon. Why would they be? Perfection cannot be improved. Today, you have a problem that does not fit neatly into your ledgers. A delegation has arrived from the Marsbanat of Syria. They have brought with them a strange and troubling device, a Frankish crossbow. It is a crude thing of wood and sinew, ugly compared to the elegant composite bows of your imperial archers, but its power is undeniable. In a demonstration, it sent a thick, stubby bolt through the lacquered shield and mail shirt of a training dummy, a shot that would have defeated the armor of one of your own elite infantrymen. The Syrian general, a man whose family has served the empire since the conquest, is deeply concerned. He speaks of the increasing boldness of Frankish raiders in the Mediterranean, of their ships filled with these determined, heavily armoured warriors. He requests that the imperial armories begin manufacturing these weapons, that your tactics be updated to counter this new threat. You listen patiently. Then you deny his request. You explain to him, with the calm certainty of a man who knows he is right, that the military system of the empire is a reflection of its perfect social order. At its heart is the Aswaran, the noble heavy cavalry, the cataphracts, who are the living embodiment of Sassanian power. They are supported by the vast levies of infantry and the elite archer corps. This system has defeated the Romans, contained the Arabs, and pacified the Slavs. It has kept the peace of the world for 200 years. To introduce a weapon designed for a common foot soldier to defeat a noble knight is not a tactical innovation. It is a social poison. It is an admission that a peasant with a mechanical device can be the equal of a nobleman who has trained his entire life for war. It is an affront to a Shah, the sacred order of the universe. This is the ethical tension of your world. You are a man of peace and stability. Your every decision is aimed at preserving the delicate, intricate balance of the empire. You are not a fool. You see the potential of this new weapon, but you also see the chaos it would unleash. It would empower the lower classes. It would devalue the warrior aristocracy, that is the pillar of the state. It would win a few frontier skirmishes at the cost of unraveling the very fabric of your civilization. You choose order over efficiency. You choose stability over innovation. The delegation leaves, their faces masks of frustration. You turn to a more pressing matter, the final designs for the new aqueduct that will bring water to the Shahonshah's hanging gardens of Khosrow-Shad. This is a project that truly matters. It is a work of civil engineering on a scale the world has never seen, a testament to the empire's ability to bend nature itself to its will. The engineers have solved the problem of moving vast quantities of water over 100 miles, with a brilliant new system of pressurized siphons based on rediscovered Greek principles. Here is the unexpected twist. The long centuries of internal peace and unimaginable wealth have not created a lazy, decadent society. They have created a hyper-specialized one. The Sassanian Empire has become a civilization of brilliant gardeners, architects, poets, and bureaucrats, but it has forgotten how to be a civilization of soldiers. The military has become a ritualized institution, not a living one. The annual military parades in Ctesiphon are magnificent spectacles, with the cataphracts in their polished, ceremonial armor that has not been changed in a century. But this army has not fought a peer competitor in living memory. Its generals are masters of logistics and parade ground drill, not strategy. Its victories are police actions against disorganized tribesmen, or the swift, brutal crushing of internal dissent. The empire's military is like a champion swordsman who has spent 50 years practicing the same perfect forms, never once facing a new opponent with a different style. The stagnation is subtle, but it is everywhere. Your astronomers at Gondishapur still use Ptolemaic models of the universe, refined to an incredible degree of predictive accuracy, but the fundamental geocentric concept has never been questioned. Why should it be? The Shahanshah is the center of the world, so it is only logical that the world is the center of the universe. Your physicians are masters of herbalism and diagnostic medicine, but the practice of surgery is a low-status craft, left to barbers and battlefield medics. The body of a high-caste Persian is too pure to be opened with a blade. You live in a gilded cage of your own making. The empire is powerful, peaceful, and prosperous, but it is brittle. Its strength is the strength of a great sheet of glass. Its perfection is its greatest vulnerability. It is a society that has eliminated all its external rivals and is now slowly, methodically, eliminating its own capacity for change. Late that night, you are in your study, reviewing the latest tribute manifests from the Indian trade routes. Spices, gems, exotic woods, the lifeblood of the empire's luxury economy. An aide brings you a dispatch, a minor report from a naval patrol in the Red Sea. It notes a strange encounter. A small flotilla of Frankish ships, far from their usual Mediterranean raiding grounds, was sighted near the coast of the Aksumite kingdom. They seemed to be charting the coastline. The report dismisses them as lost pirates. You set the dispatch aside. It is an anomaly, a meaningless piece of data in a sea of perfect, predictable order. It does not occur to you to ask what the Franks are looking for so far from their homes. It does not occur to you that while you have been perfecting the art of building aqueducts, they have been perfecting the art of building ships that can cross oceans. It does not occur to you that while your army has become a beautiful, ceremonial jewel, theirs have been hardened in a crucible of constant, desperate, internecine warfare. You look out at the ancient, perfect arch, illuminated by the light of 1,000 torches. You are Peroz, the guardian of a world that has achieved its final form. You feel a profound sense of satisfaction. The cage is secure. The world is at peace, and you do not hear the faint, distant sound of the bars beginning to rust. You are a sailor who has tasted the monsoon winds on your tongue and mapped the coastlines of a dozen forgotten kingdoms. Your name is Anne, and you are a child of two worlds, born in the teeming port city of Guangzhou to a Chinese mother and a Persian father, a merchant who followed the ancient sea lanes to the court of the Tang. You speak the tongue of the Dragon Throne and the language of the Shahanshah with equal fluency, and you serve a master who needs men just like you, the Emperor Taizong, the Son of Heaven. Your mission is one of the utmost secrecy and importance. You are the captain of a Baochuan, a treasure ship, a colossal vessel from the imperial shipyards of Nanjing. It is a floating fortress with 9 masts, watertight bulkheads, and a crew of 500, including a detachment of the Emperor's finest crossbowmen. You are not on a voyage of trade or exploration. You are an instrument of imperial policy, the leading edge of a new grand strategy. For a century, the world has been dominated by a simple geopolitical reality. The Sassanian Empire is the unquestioned global superpower. They control the western end of all trade. Their wealth is legendary, and their cultural influence stretches from the Danube to the Indus. The Middle Kingdom, secure in its own celestial mandate, has long treated them as a distant, powerful, but ultimately peripheral barbarian state. That has changed. The reports from the Sassanian-controlled ports in the Indian Ocean in Gujarat, on the Malabar coast, in the island kingdom of Lanka, have grown increasingly arrogant. The Persian Dikwans dictate the terms of trade, their prices for silk and ceramics bordering on insult. Their garrisons have grown larger, their warships more numerous. They no longer treat the Tang as an equal, but as a wealthy and distant resource to be exploited. Emperor Taizong, a man of immense ambition and strategic genius, has decided that the world is no longer large enough for 2 suns to shine in the sky. He will not challenge the Persian beast in its heartland. The deserts and mountains of the far west are a graveyard of armies. He will challenge it here, on the warm waters of the Indian Ocean and in the jungle kingdoms of Southeast Asia. He will build a string of pearls, a network of allied ports and vassal states that will bypass and contain Sassanian power, redirecting the flow of wealth directly to China. Your first destination is the court of the Chola dynasty in southern India. You arrive not as a humble trader, but as the magnificent envoy of a great power. Your treasure ship, dwarfing the local dhows and catamarans, is itself a message. You unload gifts that are statements of technological and artistic superiority. Porcelain so fine you can see the light through it. Bolts of silk, embroidered with patterns of impossible complexity, and a series of intricate mechanical clocks that seem to run on magic. You meet with the Chola king, and you make the emperor's offer. In exchange for exclusive trading rights and permission to build a fortified Tang trading post, or Fangcheng, in his main harbour, the emperor will offer his protection. He will provide the Chola king with military advisors to train his armies, engineers to improve his fortifications, and a squadron of the imperial navy to guard his coasts against Sassanian encroachment. It is an alliance against the hegemon. This is the unexpected twist. The great rivalry between the world's two superpowers is not a hot war. It is a cold war, a vast and subtle game of geopolitical chess played across a board of smaller kingdoms. Your journey is not one of conquest, but of influence. From the Cholas, you sail to the Srivijaya Empire in Sumatra, a kingdom that controls the vital Strait of Malacca, the choke point through which all maritime trade must pass. You make the same offer. You travel to the Khmer kingdom in Cambodia, a land of vast rice paddies and magnificent temple cities. Everywhere you find rulers who are growing weary of Persian arrogance and are eager to find a powerful new partner to balance the scales. This is your ethical tension. You are an agent of liberation, freeing these kingdoms from their de facto vassalage to the Sassanian monopoly. You bring them wealth, technology, and security. But you are also an agent of a new, more subtle form of imperialism. The Fangchengs you help establish are not just trading posts. They are self-governing Chinese enclaves, subject to Tang law, protected by Tang soldiers. The military advisors you leave behind do not just train armies. They create dependencies, binding the local militaries to Chinese weapons and Chinese doctrine. You are not painting these kingdoms red on a map, but you are weaving them into a silken web from which they may never escape. You are replacing an iron cage with a golden one. One humid evening in the Khmer capital of Angkor, you are dining with the king in his wooden palace. He is a young, ambitious ruler who has eagerly accepted the emperor's offer. He shows you the plans for his new state temple, a massive stone structure that will be the largest religious monument in the world. His architects, working with the Chinese engineers you brought with you, have incorporated new techniques of corbelled vaulting, allowing for larger, more stable galleries. The temple is a fusion of Khmer spirituality and Chinese engineering, a monument to your new alliance. A messenger arrives, breathless. He carries a dispatch for you. It is from the Tang spy network in Lanka. It reports that a high-level Sassanian envoy, a man named Hormizd, has just arrived at the Persian naval base there. He has brought with him not gifts of silk, but chests of silver. He is meeting with the rival claimants to the Srivijayan throne, with the rebellious princes of the Chola kingdom, with anyone who nurses a grievance against the rulers you have so carefully cultivated. The Persians have recognized the game, and they are now playing it as well. They are funding insurgencies, bribing court officials, and fomenting civil wars. You look at the Khmer king, his face aglow with his dreams of a grand new temple. You realize that you have not brought him peace. You have brought him into the heart of the great game. His kingdom, and all the other kingdoms you have visited, are no longer just places on a map. They are now squares on a chessboard. They are the battlegrounds of the dragon and the Simurgh. Their jungles will become the graves of soldiers in proxy wars. Their thrones will be bought and sold by distant paymasters in Chang'an and Ctesiphon. You have helped to build a new world order, a bipolar world of two competing superpowers. It is a world of breathtaking scope, of grand strategy played out across oceans and continents. But as you look at the trusting face of the young king, you feel the profound weight of what you have done. You have given him the tools to build his masterpiece, but you have built it on the slopes of a volcano. You are a man who lives in two worlds at once. By day, you are Isaac, a dealer in rare gems and fine parchment in the bustling Jewish quarter of Ctesiphon. You haggle in Aramaic, keep your ledgers in Pahlavi, and bow your head to the Zoroastrian officials who patrol your district. But by night, in the flickering lamplight of the great yeshiva of Sura, You are Yitzhak, a scholar, a student of the Holy Word. Here, the world of the Shahanshah and his empire fades to a distant murmur. The only kingdom that matters is the kingdom of the law. Your world is the world of the Babylonian Talmud. Here, in Mesopotamia, in the shadow of the Sassanian throne, lies the undisputed center of global Jewish life. For centuries, since the destruction of the Second Temple, the great academies of Sura and Pumbedita have been the furnaces where the oral law was forged into a magnificent, intricate, and all-encompassing code. The Talmud. It is a universe in itself, a labyrinth of law, legend, and debate that governs every conceivable aspect of a Jew's life, from the way you tie your sandals in the morning to the prayers you whisper on your deathbed. Tonight, the head of your academy, the Gaon, the Splendor, has assembled the senior scholars. An urgent question has arrived from the Jewish community in Visigothic Spain, a journey of many months by ship and caravan. You huddle over the parchment, the Hebrew script, a chain of black fire on the page. The letter is a cry of despair. It speaks of the new laws of the Gothic Imperium, of forced conversions, of the burning of sacred books, of a community being systematically strangled. It asks for guidance, but it also contains a dangerous seed of a new idea. Some of the Spanish Jews, it reports, have begun to study the philosophical texts of the Greeks, trying to find a new language to defend their faith against the militant Christian theology of Toledo. They speak of finding common ground with the righteous Gentiles, of reinterpreting the law through the lens of reason to make it more accessible to the outside world. They are, in essence, proposing a Spanish experiment, an opening to the Gentile world of ideas. The Gaon, an old man with a beard as white as desert salt and eyes that have seen the entire Talmud reflected in their depths, listens to the letter being read. When it is finished, a profound and heavy silence fills the room. This is not just a question of survival for a distant community. It is a challenge to the very foundation of your world. Then the Gaon speaks, his voice quiet but carrying the weight of absolute authority. The Greeks built their world on questions, he says. We have built ours on answers. Their reason is a ship without a rudder, tossed on the waves of fashion and opinion. Our law is an anchor, fixed to the bedrock of Sinai. To seek wisdom outside the law is to seek nourishment in a poisoned well. The suffering of our brothers in Hispania is a test of their faith, not a summons to abandon it. The only answer is the law, a higher wall, a deeper study, a more perfect observance. This is the judgment. This is the unexpected twist. In our world, the rise of Islam and the Golden Age in Spain would create a new center for Jewish life, one that engaged deeply with Arabic and Greek philosophy, producing thinkers like Maimonides, who would forever change the faith. In this world, that never happens. With no Islamic counterweight, the isolated and persecuted community in Spain withers or is forcibly assimilated. Jewish intellectual life does not find a new home in Cordoba. It remains here, in Babylon, and under the crushing weight of the Gaonat's authority, it turns inward. The response sent back to Toledo is not a letter of philosophical engagement, it is a legal ruling. It commands the community to cease its study of Gentile texts. It details stricter interpretations of the laws of purity and separation. It offers no new strategy, only a doubling down on the old one. To survive is to be separate. To be separate is to be holy. You are the one tasked with drafting the final response. And this is your ethical tension. You are a man of deep faith, and you believe in the sanctity of the law. You see the wisdom in the Gaon's position. Assimilation is a path to oblivion. But you have a cousin, a merchant who travels to the west, and he has brought you back smuggled scrolls. You have secretly read a translation of Plato's Republic. and its elegant logic thrilled you in a way that the dense legal arguments of the Talmud, for all their brilliance, never have. You feel the power of this other way of thinking, its ability to question, to analyze, to build new worlds of ideas. To write the Gaon's decree is to obey, to preserve the purity of your people, to protect them with the armor of tradition. But it also feels like you are closing a door, locking your own people into a beautiful, holy, but ultimately airless room. You are choosing survival over growth, purity over engagement. Is this an act of faith or an act of fear? Years later, you are a senior scholar yourself. The world has not changed. The Sassanian Empire is stable. The Jewish communities within it are secure, their status as a tolerated minority fixed by law and custom. Your academy thrives, producing ever more intricate commentaries on the commentaries of the Talmud. Your life is one of serene, intellectual devotion, but sometimes news from the outside world filters in. You hear that the last of the Jewish communities in Hispania has vanished, its members either converted, killed, or fled to the war-torn Frankish lands. You hear of the strange new philosophies being born in the West, of a militant Christendom that is forging a new intellectual tradition based on a fusion of Augustine and the scraps of Aristotle they possess. You sit in the great library of the yeshiva, surrounded by thousands of scrolls, the collective wisdom of your people for a millennium. You are safe. Your world is whole and perfect. But you think of the letter from Spain all those years ago, of that small, desperate seed of a new idea. You think of the world of questions you briefly glimpsed, and then helped to wall away, and in the profound, sacred silence of the library, you feel the quiet, chilling thought that you have created a magnificent and enduring monument on what might have been a living road. You have preserved the book of your people, but you have sealed it shut. You are a liar who works in stone and glass. Your name is Ioannis, and your hands, stained with the dust of pigments and the fine cuts from sharp-edged tesserae, are the most sought after in Khosrow-Shad. Your grandfather was one of the men who plastered over the face of Christ in the Hagia Sophia. He died with a sense of shame so profound it was like a second shadow. You, his grandson, have found a different path. You have chosen not to hide the old art, but to master it, and to sell it to the new lords of the world. You are a mosaicist. You are a master of a Roman art form that the Persian elite, for all their wealth, could never replicate. Their own art was one of rock and silver, the grand, stiff, hieratic reliefs carved into mountain cliffs, the intricate metalwork of their royal plates. It was an art of symbols, of profiles, of divine investiture. It had power, but it lacked a pulse. What they secretly craved, what they saw in the churches and palaces they conquered, was the Roman genius for capturing life, for rendering a man in stone and glass who could look back at you with a soul in his eyes. And you are the one who can give it to them. Your workshop near the Golden Horn is a hive of activity, a factory of beauty for the new aristocracy. You have taught your apprentices how to make the gold leaf tesserae that can capture the light of a candle and make a wall shimmer as if it were woven from the sun itself. You have rediscovered the formulas for the deep blues of a twilight sky and the 100 shades of green needed to render a perfect cypress tree. You create hunting scenes for their villas, mythological beasts for their bathhouses, and serene garden landscapes for their dining halls. You are a collaborator, a cultural translator, and you have grown rich on the empire's insatiable appetite for the art of the people it vanquished. One day, the Praepositus Sacri Cubiculi, the Grand Chamberlain of the imperial household, a man whose power is second only to the vizier, comes to your workshop. This is not a social call. He unrolls a set of architectural plans on your work table. They are for the new audience hall of the Great Palace, a chamber of such immense scale that it will dwarf even the legendary Tark Khosrow in Ctesiphon. He points to the vast, curved apse behind the space designated for the throne. The Shahanshah requires an image, the Chamberlain says, his Greek precise and cold. An image of himself. It will be the first and last thing any ambassador, any petitioner, any king will see. It must express his essence. It must be to final. You understand immediately. This is not just a portrait. This is a statement of theology. A weapon in the ongoing Cold War against the Western heresy. It is a response to the followers of Mazdak the Younger, who claim the divine glory has fled the Sassanian line. This mosaic will be the empire's definitive counter-argument. He gives you the iconographic parameters, worked out by the most orthodox mobads from the Persian heartland. They are a paradox. They want the gravitas and realism of a Roman Augustus, but the divine symbolism of a Sassanian king. They want a man who is a man, but also a god. They want you to fuse two traditions that are fundamentally opposed. This is your ethical tension. This is the commission of a lifetime. A chance to create the defining work of a new era, to put your name in the annals of art for 1,000 years. But the price is to use your God-given talent, your Christian-born heritage of artistic expression, to deify a mortal king, to create the most powerful idol the world has ever known. Can you create a masterpiece that is also a blasphemy? Is there a difference? You accept. The artist in you is too hungry to refuse. You spend months on the cartoons, the full-scale drawings. You study the two artistic traditions until they invade your dreams. You look at Roman imperial coins and statues, at the way a subtle line around the mouth can convey authority, the way the gaze can be made to seem all-knowing. Then you study the Sassanian rock reliefs at Nakhsha-Rostam, the way the king sits on his horse, larger than life, his form radiating an inhuman power, receiving the ring of kingship directly from the hand of Ahura Mazda. And then you see how to solve the puzzle. You will not depict the Shahanshah receiving power, you will depict him as power. This is the birth of the Greco-Persian style. This is your unexpected twist. You create an image that is neither Roman nor Persian, but a new thing, a terrifying synthesis. You sketch the Shahanshah Yazdegerd V, not in the flat, symbolic profile of Sassanian tradition. You render him seated on his throne, in a three-quarter view that gives him Roman weight and volume. His face is not a stylized mask. It is a portrait, recognizable, with the heavy brow and strong jaw of the Sassanian line. His eyes, made from the darkest obsidian tesserae, are fixed on the viewer with an unnerving, direct gaze. This is the Roman part, but everything else is Persian, elevated to a cosmic scale. He does not wear a simple crown. His diadem is a celestial object, from which sprout wings of a Simurgh, inlaid with mother of pearl. Around his head, you do not paint a simple halo. You design a nimbus of pure, shimmering gold leaf tesserae, a tangible, burning aura that represents the Kvarina, the divine glory, made manifest. At his shoulders hover the sun and the moon. His robes are not merely silk, they are a map of the cosmos, with stars and constellations picked out in silver. In his hand he holds not a scepter, but a shepherd's crook, cast in gold. The Chamberlain and the Chief Mobad review your final cartoons. The Mobad, a fierce old man from Istar, stares at the drawing for a long time. You have left a space for the inscription beneath the throne. What will it say, you ask? The Mobad looks at you, his eyes like black coals. It will not say King of Kings. It will say Tangent, E Pasen, he says in Pahlavi. The Chamberlain translates, the future body, the final manifestation. You feel the blood drain from your face. They are not just calling him a god-king. They are explicitly identifying him with the Saoshyant, the final world savior of Zoroastrian prophecy. The work begins. For a year, the apse of the audience hall is your world. You and your team of 50 artisans live on the scaffolding, a small city of artists suspended between heaven and earth. You place every stone, every piece of glass, yourself. You watch the great image emerge from the plaster, piece by piece. The face of the king takes shape. A face that is both human and eternal. A face that judges and commands. The day it is finished, you stand alone on the floor of the great hall, looking up at your creation. It is the most beautiful and most terrible thing you have ever seen. It works. The synthesis is seamless. The Roman realism makes the divine claims of the Persian symbolism believable. The Persian symbolism gives the Roman-style portrait a terrifying cosmic authority. It is the perfect image of a perfect, absolute power. You have given the empire a face. You have given the Shah the gaze of a god. And as you stare up into those obsidian eyes you crafted with your own hands, you feel a craftsman's pride so vast it is an ecstasy, and a sinner's guilt so deep it is a new and private hell. You are Ioannis, the master of the Greco-Persian style. You are the man who taught stone how to lie divinely. You are a man born for the saddle. Your world is the endless steppe, a sea of grass under a sky of impossible size. Your name is Subutai, and you are a general in the service of the great Khan, the scourge of God, the master of the Mongol horde. You are not a king. You are something far more terrifying. You are a weapon. You are the mind that guides the storm. You are old now. Your face is a map of 100 campaigns. Your body a tapestry of scars. You have watered your horses in the rivers of China and the lakes of Russia. You have burned cities whose names you cannot pronounce, and accepted the surrender of princes you cannot remember. You have seen everything. You have broken everything. And now you have come to break the last and greatest thing in the world, the empire of the Persians. For 5 years your armies have moved west like a tide of grassfire. You shattered the Khwarezmian kingdom. You sacked Samarkand and Bukhara. You leveled Baghdad, a provincial city in this world, but a wealthy one. Before you lies the Zagros mountain range, the great wall of stone that guards the Sassanian heartland, and beyond it, the twin jewels of Ctesiphon and Khosrow-Shad, the wealth of 1,000 years waiting to be taken. The reports of your scouts have confirmed what your spies have been saying for years. The Sassanian Empire is old, rich, and soft. Its army is a parade ground force of heavily armoured aristocrats who have not fought a real war in 2 centuries. Their tactics are ancient and predictable. Their generals are courtiers. You have drawn up your plan. It is the same plan that has worked 100 times before. You will feign a retreat, lure their heavy cavalry into the open plains, surround them with your horse archers, and annihilate them with 1,000 cuts. It is a perfect, elegant, and foolproof engine of destruction. You stand on a high pass, looking down at the plain where the Imperial Sassanian army has marshalled. It is a breathtaking sight, a river of steel and silk glittering in the morning Sunday. You see the ranked legions of cataphracts, the squadrons of war elephants, the vast blocks of infantry. It is the army of a past age, a beautiful dinosaur marching proudly to its own extinction. You give the signal. The horns sound. The first stage of the trap is sprung. Your vanguard engages, then breaks, feigning terror, and flees back into the plains. And then, nothing happens. The Sassanian army does not take the bait. It does not charge. The cataphracts do not thunder across the plain in a glorious, foolish pursuit. The entire army remains in its position. A vast, disciplined, and unnervingly silent wall of shields and spears. It is a simple act of non-motion, and it is the most brilliant tactical maneuver you have ever witnessed. It breaks your entire strategy. You realize with a sickening chill that the man commanding that army is not a courtier. He knows you. He has studied you. He has read the reports from Khwarezm and Russia. He understands your methods. This is the unexpected twist. The Sassanian Empire, for all its stagnation, has one thing in abundance: information. Its vast bureaucracy, its network of trade routes and diplomatic outposts, has been gathering intelligence on the Mongol threat for a decade. While the generals in Ctesiphon dismissed the tales as provincial hyperbole, a small group of frontier commanders and military scholars in the Gondishapur Academy took them seriously. They analyzed the Mongol way of war not as a barbarian horde, but as a system. And they devised a counter-system. Not to defeat the Mongols in the open field, they knew that was impossible, but to neutralize their advantages. The Sassanian general, a man named Rostam from one of the minor noble houses of the frontier, has turned the empire's greatest weakness, its inertia, into its greatest strength. He has forbidden any offensive action. He has ordered his army to become a fortress. They have built field fortifications, dug trenches, and planted sharpened stakes. They will not fight your war. They will force you to fight theirs. The battle of the Zagros Gates, as it will be called, becomes a week-long nightmare. It is not a battle of maneuver, it is a siege. You hurl your horsemen against their lines, and your horses break their legs on the stakes. Your arrows rain down on them, and they are absorbed by their massive shields and superior armor. You try to flank them, and you find they have anchored their lines on impassable terrain. They have elephants, which your horses will not go near. They have siege engineers, who have constructed massive torsion-powered crossbows that can skewer 3 of your riders with a single bolt. Day after day, you throw the sons of the steppe against this unyielding wall of iron, and day after day, they are broken. The green plain turns into a red bog of mud and blood. You are the greatest general of the greatest conquering army in history, and you are being bled white by an army that refuses to fight. This is the ethical tension of your command. Your way of war is built on speed, on terror, on shattering the enemy's will to resist. You win quickly and totally, or you do not win at all. You have no supply lines to speak of. Your army lives off the land it conquers. But here, there is no land to conquer, only this static wall of death. Your men are growing restless. The campaign season is ending. For the first time in your life, you are faced with a choice that is not about how to win, but about how not to lose. To continue the attack is to risk the destruction of your entire army. To retreat is to admit defeat, to break the spell of Mongol invincibility forever. On the 7th day, you order the assault, not with your horse archers, but with your entire force dismounted. A human wave. It is a meat grinder. You watch from your command post as your warriors, the men who conquered half the world, die in heaps at the foot of the Sassanian shield wall. You see the general Rostam riding behind his lines, a calm, steady presence, not even drawing his sword. He is not defeating you. He is letting you defeat yourself. As the sun sets, you sound the horns for the retreat. It is not a feint this time. It is real. You have lost. The retreat is a disaster. The Sassanian cavalry, which had remained passive for the entire battle, is finally unleashed. Not to fight you, but to harry you, to chase you out of their lands. They pursue you back across the plains you conquered, never engaging in a pitched battle, but always there, on your flanks, picking off stragglers, driving you onward. You survive. You lead the remnants of your army back across the Oxus River. You have saved the core of the horde, But the world is changed. The unbroken wall has held. The Mongol tide has reached its high water mark, and it has receded. You sit in your tent, a broken old man. You have met an enemy you could not terrify, could not outmaneuver, and could not break. The Sassanian Empire is saved. But the cost of its salvation is unimaginable. The entire eastern half of the empire, the lands you ravaged on your way to the Zagros, is a depopulated wasteland. A generation of its finest soldiers lies dead on the plains before the mountains. The victorious army is now the only real power in the state, its general, Rostam, a hero who eclipses the Shahanshah himself. The empire has survived the storm, but its foundations have been cracked. It is scarred, weakened, and forever changed by the war. You, Subutai, have failed in your conquest. But in your failure, you have planted the seeds of a new and terrible civil war, a conflict between a heroic army and a decadent court that will inflict a wound far deeper than any your horsemen ever could. You have lost the battle, but you have still managed to poison the soul of your enemy. You are a man who believes the world is a finished book. Your name is Bahram, and you are the imperial logothete of the western seas, a title of immense and ancient dignity. From your office in the Zushippa's palace in Khosrow-Shad, you command a view of the Golden Horn and the Sea of Marmara. It is the most beautiful and important vista in the world, and every ship that passes beneath your window, from the lumbering grain barges from Egypt to the swift galleys of the imperial fleet, is a sentence in a story whose plot you already know by heart. The story is one of perfect, unshakable order. For 800 years, since the great victory of Khosrow II, your world has been defined by the Sassanian Empire. You have no rivals. The lands of the east are your trading partners, the steppes of the north are your recruiting grounds, and the fractured, savage kingdoms of the far west are a historical footnote, a collection of squabbling barbarians who occasionally sell you slaves and amber. You have ledgers in your archives, bound in fine gazelle leather, that map every known coastline, every trade route, every political allegiance. The book of the world is written, and you are one of its most privileged readers. Today, a single, anomalous page has been slipped into the manuscript. A dispatch arrived this morning via the fast courier system from the provincial governor in Achaia. It reported the sighting of 3 ships off the Peloponnesian coast. The report was an exercise in confusion. The ships were of no known design. They were not the long, slender war galleys of your fleet, nor the broad-beamed merchant dhows of the Indian Ocean. They flew no recognizable flag. They had, the governor noted with some alarm, sailed directly into the wind to escape a patrol, a feat that seemed to border on sorcery. Now, those ships are here. They sit at anchor in the outer harbour, and you watch them from your balcony through a polished lens of Gondishapur glass. They are ugly. There is no other word for them. They are squat and high-sided, their hulls blackened with pitch, their construction seemingly crude and heavy. They lack the grace of your own vessels. They are not built for beauty, they are built for endurance, and they have no oars. Their strange, triangular sails have been furled, but you can see that they are designed not just to catch the wind, but to argue with it. A delegation from these ships has been brought to your ministry. They are waiting for you in the antechamber. Your aides tell you they are from the Gothic Imperium of Hispania, a name that makes you want to laugh. It is like a dog declaring itself a lion. You remember them from the histories, a minor power on the edge of nowhere, defined by their fanatical, schismatic version of Christianity and their centuries. Long, pointless wars against the desert tribes who still cling to the old faith of the Prophet Muhammad. You enter the chamber. The leader of the delegation is a man whose name is given as Belisarius. The name is an insult. a piece of barbarian arrogance, like a goat naming itself after a dragon. He is not dressed in silk, but in dark woolen clothes and a polished steel breastplate. He does not bow low, but gives a stiff, formal nod. He speaks a brutal, guttural form of Latin that grates on your educated ears. "We have come," he says, his eyes sweeping your opulent office with a look that is not awe, but a cold, assessing curiosity. "As envoys of the Holy Roman Emperor of the Goths, and with the blessing of the Pope of Rome, the Vicar of Christ on earth, we have come to open the way for trade between our lands and the riches of the Orient." The audacity is breathtaking. He speaks as an equal. He speaks of trade, as if you were a common merchant in a bazaar, not the gatekeeper of the world's economy. This is the ethical tension of your position. Your every instinct, honed by a lifetime of imperial protocol, is to have this man whipped for his insolence and sent back to his master in chains. But your duty is to the stability of the empire. An unknown quantity has appeared on your doorstep. It must be assessed. You ask him how he came here. The traditional route through the Mediterranean is long and dangerous, beset by Frankish pirates. Belisarius smiles. A thin, humorless expression. "We did not come from the east, we came from the west." He explains with a terrifying simplicity that they sailed south from their own shores, around the entire continent of Africa, and came up through the Red Sea and the Suez Canal, the ancient waterway your own engineers reopened and expanded 2 centuries ago. They have charted a new road into your world, a back door you never even bothered to lock. This is the unexpected twist. They have not come to challenge your military might. They have come to render it irrelevant. They do not need to fight their way through your naval patrols in the Aegean. They have simply drawn a new, bigger map, one on which your entire empire is just a large island in a much larger sea. You agree to a demonstration of their wares, as you condescendingly call them. You and a group of high-ranking military officials are rowed out into the harbour. Belisarius orders his men to bring forth one of their curiosities. It is a thick, black metal tube mounted on a wooden carriage. It is the ugliest thing you have ever seen. One of his men touches a burning cord to a small hole in the back of the tube. The sound is the end of the world. It is not the clang of steel or the whistle of an arrow. It is a physical blow, a roar that is not heard but felt in your bones, a thunderclap that rips the air apart. A cloud of black, acrid smoke erupts from the tube's mouth, and a moment later, a stone column on the distant quay, part of an old Roman aqueduct, simply vanishes. It does not crumble. It explodes into a cloud of dust and splinters. A dead silence falls over your barge. You look at the face of the commander of your fleet, a man from one of the 7 great families of Persia. His mouth is hanging open. His eyes are fixed on the space where the column used to be. You see him glance down at the sword at his hip, at the beautiful, jewel-encrusted symbol of his authority, and in his eyes you see the dawning, horrific realization that he has just brought a knife to a thunderstorm. You return to your office. The sun is setting, casting long shadows across the Golden Horn, painting the domes and towers of your eternal city in hues of blood and gold. You sit at your desk, a blank sheet of papyrus before you. You must write your report for the Shahanshah. You see the future with a sudden, terrible clarity. You see these ugly, powerful ships multiplying. You see them not just in your harbour, but in India, in Lanka, in the Spice Islands, challenging your trade monopoly, not with armies, but with better prices and bigger guns. You see the wealth of the world beginning to flow, not into your funnel, but around it. You see the competitive, violent, and desperate world you had forgotten, the world of the West. And you realize it has not been stagnating. It has been sharpening itself to a razor's edge. While you were perfecting the art of bureaucracy, they were perfecting the art of killing from a distance. While you were building pleasure palaces, they were building ocean-going warships. You know what you should write. We face an existential threat. A new kind of power, born of a world we do not understand, has arrived. Our technology is obsolete. Our military doctrine is a historical artifact. We must learn, adapt, and innovate, or we will perish. But you cannot write that. To write that is to admit that the book of the world is not finished. It is to admit that 800 years of perfect order was not an end state, but a long, lazy afternoon that is now drawing to a close. To write that is to be branded a madman, an alarmist, a traitor to the perfection of the empire. You would lose your position, your power, your life. So you dip your pen. A minor delegation from the Gothic kingdoms has demonstrated a novel form of siege engine. You write. It is loud and crude, but has some potential. I recommend we purchase several examples for study by the engineers at Gondishapur and send the delegation away with a token gift of silk, so they may be impressed by our imperial magnificence. You sign the report, your hand steady. You have done your duty. You have preserved the peace of the court. You have protected the beautiful, fragile illusion of the eternal empire for one more day. You walk to the balcony and look out at the city. The 3 Gothic ships are still there, dark and solid against the dying light. They look so small, so insignificant. And yet you know that you are not looking at the sunset. You are looking at the beginning of a long and terrible night.